What if everything you've been taught about success is a Trojan horse? Something you welcomed into your life only to find it hollow once you achieved it. Picture a mountain climber reaching a summit only to realize they packed the wrong oxygen tank. That's the paradox of modern success. A staggering 70% of high achieving professionals admit they've checked every societal box: corner offices, six-figure salaries, and still feel emptier than they felt before, even when they started to climb. Why? Because we've conflated currency with purpose, accolades with fulfillment, and burnout with honor. But here's the twist: your brain isn't broken, it's been gaslit, bombarded by metrics that mistake motion for meaning. We've become dopamine junkies chasing promotions, likes, and titles like they're oxygen masks. Meanwhile, authentic success, such as joy, legacy, creative freedom, lies buried under layers of half truths. Today, we're dissecting five lies that keep us shackled to society's script and rewriting the rules. From the neuroscience of the hedonic treadmill, why your brain betrays you after every win, to the toxic mimicry of mimetic desire, wanting what others want just because they want it. This conversation isn't about self help fluff, it's rebellion, one that risks. What would your life look like if success wasn't a ladder to climb, but a garden to tend, patiently, imperfectly, on your own terms? So, whether you're hustling to avoid regret or exhausted by running someone else's race, this is your permission to slip, to stop, breathe, redefine. Now, let's dig in. So, as we always do, we always tend to start off with a question that kind of gets us rolling in the right direction. And I don't necessarily want to do this conversation any other way. So, I want to start off with a very simple question. What if the metrics society uses to define success are sabotaging our ability to ever feel fulfilled? And, and
Ned in here, man.
I'm sorry, man.
No, you good.
So, so I understand this is a question that does not necessarily pinpoint any particular thing, but take this question as it is. What if the metrics society uses to define success are sabotaging your ability to feel fulfilled? What would your response to that be?
Then you are screwed.
Okay.
Because if they're wrong and you're following it, then you're following the path to a road that's not going to lead, that may not end well for you, that may cost you something. Well, let's say, for instance, the metrics of society that society uses to determine blah, blah, blah. Let's say that for this situation, the metric society uses to define success is you have to make six figures and you have to own your own house by the time you're 35 years old. So if you're chasing that as being successful and you get to 35 and you're not making $100,000 a year and you haven't owned your house yet, now you feel like you're not fulfilled. Now you feel like you're behind where you haven't done it, and you're not where you need to be. And it could be, besides, like you said, like the question said, sabotaging that person's ability to fulfill or win over feel fulfilled. And that's because you're focused on that societal definition of what success is versus determining what success is for you. What is it success for me? Maybe it's not $100,000 a year. Maybe it's by the time I'm 35, I have my will set up, I have my trust set up, and I have at least two investment accounts that have at least, $3,000 in them, or whatever it is, number may be. You know what I mean? So I think that when you lean on to what someone else has defined as success, I think you always sabotage it because someone else is writing the rules and not you.
Yeah, I like that response. I think a lot of times when we pay attention to society's metrics of success, they're not necessarily the thing that success should be hinged on. Those are like additions to, right? Six figures, that's an addition to. Corner office, that's an addition to. And so it's almost like the carrot on the stick thing. I'm chasing this thing, I'm chasing this thing, I'm chasing this thing, and then I get this thing. It's like, okay, I got it. Now what? And I'll say for me, like I remember when I first started making $100,000, and I was like, okay, cool, I did it. Now what? I mean, that's literally the conversation I had with myself. Cool, I did it. Now what? And it's like, sure, it was an accomplishment, but what did it really mean? It didn't do anything for me internally or intrinsically. It just was like a thing. And so I think that's what we do a lot to ourselves. We pursue this thing that has absolutely zero meaning behind it. Like we have to define what success means for us before we start going out there and start looking at the metrics to accomplish those things. And a lot of times when we look at what true success is, it is very hard to measure because it takes you down a different path than what the path is to make six figures, to have a corner office, or to have some particular title. So I think when we look at this question, the key is that what society uses. Society uses that, but by that same token, am I trying to be like society? Is society my goal? Is what society look for in people? Is that the thing I want? Because I want society to look at me and say, "Oh, that person is somebody." And I think that's kind of like the like circle that we run. It's kind of like a dog chasing its tail. That's the circle that we run in, because at the end of the day, we have not done the work for ourselves, and that can be problematic. And I will add this to it. I'm sorry, unless you had something else you was about to say.
Um, I was just going to add something to it, but I'll let you continue with your thought if
And I
you
was
want.
just going to throw this statistic up here, and this
Hmm.
say that 70% of professionals admit they've achieved societal benchmarks of success, like salary and title, yet feel empty or fraudulent. Per a 2025 Gallup study, worse, 89% over 35 regret prioritizing others' expectation over their own values.
I like that data. Yeah, leave that up there.
Yep.
What I was going to add to this is that I don't want to just throw it all out. What society has defined as success. I think there can be some nuggets in there that we can pull from. I think at a certain point, long time ago, I was on the Dave Ramsey train, and he has the baby steps, whatever, and steps one, this and this, and I think that you know that is a that can be very useful for a lot of people depending on where you are financially. You don't have any money, you've never saved before. I think that may be a great place to start, and then you over there sometimes and you looking at what success is, it's like, paying off your house and eventually getting to a place to where you're kind of like a philanthropist and you're giving back to your culture or giving back to society and stuff like that. So I think that although those may not necessarily define what your success is, I think that sometimes you can go and look into society and pull out some of the things and kind of apply them or add them to your life. But I think overall, not just using society as a whole to determine and define what your success is.
Yeah, I did the Dave Ramsey thing too.
Yeah,
And it was some things I kept, some things I used, some things I kind of tossed
yeah,
away. And I didn't start doing Dave Ramsey. I think I was like in my 40s when I went and
yeah.
looked at it. And sure, it helped. It helped me achieve some things that I wanted to achieve. Um, but to the point that we were making, that wasn't the success that
Hmm.
we were looking for. It was a thing that we accomplished en route to the success aspect of it. But I do agree with what you're saying, like depending upon something. And I had a thought and I want to ask it to you before I just blurt it out.
Okay.
So when you look at these things, six figures and corner office and titles, things of that nature, do you think those things stem from a place of lack or a place of not having when you were younger?
I think yes. I think that for some people it is. I think some people it is that, I grew up dirt poor, I ain't have nothing. So what we know as success is the corner office and the six-figure income. That's all we know as success. Everybody I see who is successful has that. So that's what I have determined as success. I think some of it is lack, and I think there's another big portion of it is I think another big portion of that is that is what success looks like in society.
Sure.
So if that's what success looks like, then this is what I need to be successful. I can't go and post on YouTube or Instagram my new office and I'm in a cubicle. You know what I mean? And then I'm over there, yeah, I didn't made it. You know what I mean? I'm successful now. That don't hit the same as, you scanning your camera and you showing the skyline from your corner office. You know what I'm saying? So I think it is what you're saying. I think some of it does stem from a lack of, and I think some of it stems from that's what success looks like in certain places in corporate America.
Yeah, I agree. I would also add that I think it could be a large part insecurities as well. uh,
Hmm.
because I'm insecure in a certain area. If I do this, they'll like me. If I accomplish this, I'll be more accepted because of the accomplishment. If I get, whatever thing you can throw out there. And again, that's just the world that we live in.
Hmm.
And it's a sad truth, but nonetheless, it is still reality. So I'm loving what you're saying here. And that kind of takes us to the next topic, which is why achievement addiction leaves you empty. And before I get into the question, I kind of want to introduce the hedonic treadmill. And the hedonic treadmill is a psychological concept describing how humans adapt to changes in circumstances, returning to a stable baseline level of happiness over time. Despite achievements like promotions or material gains, the initial surge of happiness fades, often within 24 hours, leaving people to chase new goals without achieving lasting fulfillment. This cycle mimics running on a treadmill, constant effort without progress. And I think when we actually pay attention to it, here's some statistics to go along with it. Neuroimaging shows dopamine spikes from promotions or social media wins last less than 24 hours per Stanford fMRI studies. So that said, I want to kind of ask this question. How might societal metrics like salary status exploit dopamine driven reward systems, creating a cultural addiction to fleeting validation over lasting purpose?
Man, this all what we this is all not all. This is some of what likes are about. When we're on social media and we get them likes, you know what I mean? Let me say something. I remember going through this a little bit a few months ago. I had posted a video on TikTok, 17 seconds long. I kept getting notifications and I kept going back and look at it and it was just climbing, climbing. It was at, 2,000, 5,000. It made it all the way up to like 24,000. And every day, one of the things I was doing, I was just checking. I was checking to seeing, how many hits it was going to get, how many likes and stuff that it was going to get. You know what I'm saying? So I think that um people do that with other things too. When you click on there and you see that Dave Ramsey, video pop up and they're talking about salary and stuff like this. And, the first thing that clicks on is talks about, hey, do you want to make more money? Or, hey, the status where you at right now, you should be here and not there. You know what I mean? And I think one of the things that they do is the way they exploit people is they get on there and then people click on these things. And it was sad to say, not sad, but what happens sometimes is people get scammed. People start buying these courses that don't have anything, any substance in them. Somebody that went online, typed in, make me a course on the biggest lies we tell ourselves about success. And then make it, 12 pages long. And then now all of a sudden somebody get this printed out and then they get online and sell it for $200, and they're preying on people's dopamine and clicking on these things because people nowadays believe that they have to make a certain amount of money in order to be successful. If I don't make six figures, I'm not successful. My kids growing up, they're seeing people online who want everybody they're watching, Mr. Beast and all of these guys are making a whole bunch of money. So, you know, I need to make a whole bunch of money, and when you clicking and you seeing all of these things, it's telling you how to make more money and how to click on these programs and you getting rewards and stuff like this. I think it is definitely exploiting people's dopamine and stuff like this. I be on Facebook sometimes, I'll be on there for 5 minutes and I'll see 10 posts. 3 of them would be from people I know, the other 7 are ads. And I'm just like, how am I seeing more ads about stuff than I am people? I'm not even engaging with the people. I get people all the time like, hey, did you see my post? No. Did you see my post? No. But I saw 15 ads about shea butter. You know what I'm saying? Or something else. And I'm just like, this is not what I'm into. So why you keep showing me this and this? And I get part of it is fishing, but I kind of veered off a little bit. But that's why I think, sometimes social media and what we tend to look at and stuff like I definitely think that sometimes social media can abuse or exploit the dopamine reward system.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I'll talk about job for a second,
Mm,
um, because you get a job, and that job has within it. I got to edit that out. Excuse me.
mhm,
That job has within it. Um, you negotiate. You get the job, and you negotiate your salary. Okay, but this is the range of your salary, and they don't tell you this, so you negotiate someplace up in here, and your promotion will get you up here over the years. But this is the thing that gets you more excited, more dedicated, more driven towards, being a company man, as they would say it, right? And so every promotion you get, you become more of a company man. And in here, there may be a title change, but it's still within the range of what they had for that position before they even hired you. And every step is a dopamine blast because it gets you motivated, it gets you excited, you start feeling good about yourself, you start feeling good about the job, you start feeling good about the people that you work for, and all that other great stuff. And so, in essence, it becomes a never ending cycle of chasing a carrot on the stick, right? So, you get that from job, but then you get that in social media, like you just talked about. You also get that in relationship as well. And so, at the end of the day, I hate to use the word manipulation, but that's kind of like almost what it is. It's almost like a manipulative tactic to get you excited and keep you in the organization and dedicated to the organization every step you take. And it's unfortunate because some organizations will actually call your next promotion a step. And when you really stop and think about it, it's like, wow, are you that blatant? You're that obvious with it? But yeah, that's really what it is. Like every step you take is geared toward getting you excited, getting you motivated, and getting you more committed to the organization because you believe they see value in you. But what you had not even considered is that that's what they were going to give you anyway. And it took me some years before I even learned that, because in the contracting world, when you have these salary positions, you'll negotiate the positions to get paid for from them. They're going to pay you each person. Let's just say each person. This is their top, and this is what we negotiated. But ideally, when they hire you, they're going to hire you down here. And so every year your promotion is factored in, and I'm going to ping them for more money every year because it's written into it. Or I write it into it for a multi-year contract. But if you really stop and think about it, every job is in essence a contract, every one of them. And we don't see it that way because no one talks about it from that perspective. So when we look at creating a cultural addiction to fleeting validation over lasting purpose, well, What is the thing that validates you in that position? Pay raise, promotion, time off. And those are the things that you're going to get. Time off is written into the amount of hours that you work. And some of them, like for every month you work, you get X amount of hours, or every pay period, I'm sorry, every pay period you get X amount of hours time off. Well, that's the thing that, keep you dedicated. So it's the fleeting validation that you pursue, not necessarily the lasting purpose, because the only purpose that job cares about is theirs. That's why they give you their organizational values so that you can adopt them as yours and become a company man. Um, and that's the thing. And until we open our eyes and realize that that's what reality is, we'll always believe like, oh, well, I got a good job. They really care about me. No, no, no. I don't think so. Because if you lose, if you leave, I bet you they'll find another one to replace you. And then that person gonna say, I got a good job. They really care about me. Sure. Because that's how the system works. So yeah, man.
At the end of the day, everybody's replaceable. You know what I mean? People like to think they not, but I'm telling you, unless you started that company, you know what I mean? For the most part, you was hired on, and there was probably somebody working that position before you was. And if you was to kick the bucket, decide you're gonna quit for some reason, not show up tomorrow, they're gonna be somebody in your space.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they may have to, where they may have to, will they go through some changes or adjustments? Yeah, especially if you knew a lot of information. But more likely, if the company is a good company, it's not built around that one person anyway. So it should survive, you know.
Well, I'll add if there was a good company to me, you sign an NDA. And if you sign the NDA, the information that you had, you can't even share it anyway.
Boom. There you go.
Then there's that.
Yeah.
Hustle,
I ain't no
hustle.
work for none of them companies. Well, kind of sort. I had the security clearance, a top secret. No,
Yeah.
I have top secret. I have a top secret. No, I just had a secret.
Well, you still sign the NDA for that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't even share any of that information.
Mm.
Um, hustle culture as a as a failure strategy, and I think this is an interesting one to say the least.
Mm.
Because when you look at that, that brings us to what is called HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. Right now, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis dysregulation refers to an imbalance or dysfunction in the neuroendocrine system responsible for managing stress, metabolism, immunity, and emotional regulation. The HPA axis involves three interconnected components: hypothalamus, which is the brain region responsible for releasing a particular hormone; pituitary gland, which is releasing the adrenal corticotropic. So I always struggle saying that corticotropic hormone, and then you have the adrenal gland, which produces cortisol. So when we look in this, teams with enforced rest report 33% faster revenue growth, according to the Harvard Business School. So, scenario: if a high performing manager's burnout manifests as frequent colds and emotional numbness, what invisible cost does their resilience narrative impose on team innovation and their health? Option A: innovation atrophy and risk aversion. Option A. Option two: contagious absenteeism and turnover spikes. Option three: healthcare inflation and presenteeism, debt. And option four: trust erosion and leadership vacuum. I saw the scenario again. If a high performing manager's burnout manifests as frequent colds and emotional numbness, what invisible cost does their resilience narrative impose on team innovation and their health? Again, option one: innovation atrophy and risk aversion. Option two: contagious absenteeism and turnover spikes. Option three: healthcare inflation and presenteeism debt. Or option four: trust erosion and leadership vacuum.
It's interesting. Looking at I want to say healthcare inflation and presenteeism debt. Because if this joker get colds all the time and he coming to work, like, bro, mess around, pass around your germs and stuff like that. Yeah, I looked at contagious absenteeism, but I don't know if turnover is going to necessarily spike because of that. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with option 3.
Okay. I can see how you went with option 3 because it actually makes sense. But the
Mhm.
correct answer is option 4. Trust
That
erosion
was the least one that I was going to choose.
Yeah.
I need to know why. Trust erosion. Okay.
and leadership vacuum. The
Hmm.
emotional numbness and resilience narrative described in this scenario directly undermines the manager's ability to connect with and support their team. Junior staff members sensing indifference or a lack of mentorship disengage and lose trust in leadership. 58% reduction in team trust per Modern Health. This creates a leadership vacuum as subordinates feel unsupported, leading to resentment and eventual collapse of mentorship pipelines. While absenteeism, healthcare costs, and innovation stalls, which is options 1, 2, and 3, are critical, trust erosion magnifies systemic dysfunction long term, harming retention, collaboration, and organizational culture.
That emotional numbness is a thing, ain't it?
It's definitely a thing. Absolutely.
I
And, and
don't
here
know.
And here's the interesting part. The resilience narrative perpetuates a cycle of stoicism where it masks unaddressed burnout, corroding the foundational trust required for team cohesion and sustainable productivity. If that works in the business setting, what does that look like in a family setting? Because again, we sometimes pride ourselves on being resilient. We talk about how strong we are,
Yeah,
right? Hmm.
but I don't know, man. I don't know. I was thinking about the military
Mhm.
when we were in, and so I'm looking at the emotional numbness piece. Did we really look at our leaders and supervisors to, you know, care about us or have, these feelings and stuff like this? I don't know. Like for me, I was raised in the military. I didn't really care what Sergeant thought, you know what I mean, and how much he necessarily cared about me. It was just like, all right, private, sergeant, corporal, specialist, whatever, do your job. Like get up in the morning, do PT, be where you're supposed to be, and then do your job. It's like, I was always thought that I'm just do what I'm supposed to do. I don't really care if Sergeant Dwyer, feel a certain type of way. Like I still got to do what I got to do. Like his feelings, his emotionals, as long as they ain't disrespecting me or just treat me bad, then we good. Long as he being direct, I understand that NCO is just like, hey, do this, and that's just how it is. So is this, am I way off? Is this more like a civilian thing? This is more like civilians deal with this more, or like, am I way off, or like what?
Well, I think what you just described was kind of like a degree of emotional numbness. I don't really care what he thinks about me, right? Um, because going back to the whole concept of leadership, right, and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Um, Empathy is a leadership trait. So I may not care initially because I don't know that leaders are supposed to care, right?
Mhm.
Um, but leaders are supposed to have empathy for the people that are working for them. I say it that way. And that empathy recognizes the things that they're going through, not forgetting that you were once in their shoes. Well, you are the shoes that are being filled and later will become that leader. So in the beginning, it could seem like some emotional numbness on my behalf because I don't care how they see me, how they feel, when whatever the case may be. But then as time progresses, and if you actually have a good leader, you get to the point to where you want to do your job because of who you actually working for, not just simply because it's a job. And if you reflect back on your career, there have been leaders, I believe, that you've encountered, like this dude right here, man. If that dude called me right now, it's 8 o'clock at night. I get up, jump in my truck, and drive and see what's going on because
Mhm,
the type of leader that they are, and I don't want to let
mhm.
them down. So that's just kind of like how I see it.
But you, even Sergeant Dwyer, regardless of who he works for or works up under, whether it's the bad, biggest, biggest, I can't think of a proper word. That ain't a bad word. So
Right.
whether it's the biggest unprofessional person or the most respected person in the unit, orders come down, Sergeant Dwyer, it gets delivered to you in two different ways. Either way, Sergeant Dwyer is still going to execute the mission.
Sure.
So even then, why is it even important? Why is it like that's what I'm saying? Like, why do I even care? Like, I got to go out and execute regardless. You know what I mean? Regardless of how empathetic my leaders are. If they
Sure.
tell me I have to do something, I'm going to do it. Now, to your point, if I have a relationship with them and I like Sergeant Dwyer and he is being empathetic, he is respectful to me, I'm gonna go above and beyond. But even if I don't like him, I'm still gonna do what I'm supposed to do because I have to respect the rank and the orders of my superiors that are placed above me, you know?
That do. It's I
Yeah.
mean, what you're talking about is the difference between personal responsibility, do your job,
Mm.
right? And team development and team cohesion, right? The leader's responsibility is to build a team. Your responsibility
Mhm.
is to do your job. So if you're told to do something, yeah, do it because that's you being responsible. But the leader is responsible for building the team. So now the team gets to the point that they start caring about one another and looking out for one another. And let's just say one person gets sick, we pick up the slack because we know that that person is sick and can't be there, and we don't want that person to fail. So then you start
Mhm.
doing more than what you're responsible for.
I
But
get it.
again, it's all stemming from the leader.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
when you the team, that word team and how you threw that in there just makes it a lot more clear. I get it. I get it. I get it.
yeah, yeah. And that takes us to busyness as fear camouflage. And I think this is an interesting one because now it takes us to a notion called opportunity caused blindness. And opportunity caused blindness refers to the failure to evaluate or consider more beneficial alternatives when making a decision, resulting in suboptimal outcomes due to overlooked potential gains. It occurs when individuals, organizations, or policymakers prioritize a chosen option without adequately assessing the value of rejected alternatives, leading to inefficiency and resource misallocation. And that said, 78% of safe path professional abandon goals by 40 to avoid failure optics, according to Forbes. And so that said, what survival reflexes make safety feel like protection? Even when statistics show 78% of safe path professionals regret detours by age 40.
Oh, I thought I was gonna get some multiple choice. What survival reflexes make safety feel like protection, even when statistics show 78% of safe path professionals regret detours by age 40? Man, I'm still trying to put the question together. What survival reflexes make safety feel like protection?
I tell you what, I go first on this one now.
Okay, help me out.
This thing right here is wired for protection. This thing right here
Okay.
is wired for safety. That's the thing that we feel when somebody is urging us to step outside of our comfort zone. So a lot of times what ends up happening is that we will how can I say it? We can I want to make sure I'm saying it. Ideally, what should happen is we prepare ourselves for the future that we're looking forward to living. But a lot of times, what ends up happening is instead of preparing ourselves for the future that we want to live, we prepare ourselves for the next obtainable goal, one that we know that we can obtain. And so that kind of leads us along the path of safe path. And sometimes in that, leapfrogging from this goal to this goal to this goal, because that's how people are taught to set goals these days. You set goals to the point that you can set them, achieve them. Well, leaping from this lily pad to this lily pad, a lot of times when things change, if you will, continuing to go down that path feels a lot less secure. So your brain is ultimately wired for safety and security, and it will always choose the least intrusive route simply because it feels safer. But when you really look at how you're supposed to set goals, you're supposed to set goals that force you outside of your comfort zone. And a lot of times we don't necessarily do that. And then when you get older and you realize that you kind of regret the path that you took because you weren't, how can I say it? You weren't necessarily assertive enough. You weren't aggressive enough and things of that nature. You chose the easy way of doing a thing as opposed to choosing a harder way of doing a thing, even though you can look at the harder way and everybody who went the harder path looked like they achieved more. So that's the route I'm going to take with this question right here.
All right, I got it. I got it right now. I was trying to decide if I want now and if I want to go um with relationships or not relationships. Um I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with relationships, but I may intertwine some other things in there. So um I think especially initially, especially so I will say this. There are people who go into relationships and marriages feeling very safe. You know what I mean? So they like, look, I don't know if I'm giving her access to my checking account. I don't know if I'm giving him access to my checking account. Do we did a joint account? Marriage, you know, finances is one of the leading causes of divorce, right? And communication is a big one. Selfishness, I think, is the number one because I think everything eventually, if you peel back the onion, it comes down to someone being selfish at some point in the relationship. So I think when you're looking at relationships, I think especially when someone has been hurt, there's a lot of things that people put into place in relationships. I've heard people say, tell women, grandmas and big mamas say, girl, you better always have your little stash off to the side. You know what I mean? So you're going into the relationship um with trust issues when it comes to finances, and then we wonder why the divorce rate is so high. You have guys telling their sons and stuff, hey, if you're going to do it, if you're going to step outside the marriage, then this is how you do it. So I think sometimes in relationships we listen to people and there's information that's being pushed down. Control. There you go, right there. There's information and stuff that's being pushed down, and off my train of thought. No, did you say control is the
Yeah,
safety reflex?
yeah. That's everything you just described.
It's
If
control.
if I can control the narrative of the relationship, I feel
Mhm.
secure. And
Yeah.
now, because I set the parameters of the relationship, if you deviate outside of the parameters that I set, now you have now violated the terms of the relationship, even though
Mm,
both of you are human and you will always do something by stepping outside of the relationship. And when I say stepping outside of the relationship, I'm just talking about, doing something that the other person didn't expect you to do, or like, spend too much money or tell them a lie
mhm.
nature. I'm not talking about stepping outside of the relationship like most people talk about. It's control.
Yeah. I see that. I see
Yeah.
that.
But it's the same thing.
Even though they know that when you trying to control somebody in a relationship, it's probably not going to turn out well. You know what I mean? So why there's so much data. I mean, you go online and you see people dating people and you see like bruh got this habit. He checked the box here, 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 here. You know what I mean? And you still gonna go out with him. Like this dude got 10 kids and he got 8 baby mamas, and you still be like, you know what? No matter what, I am not going to be the ninth one. And I'm just saying, I'm just and his kids and his dudes is going out there and and getting women, and let's say for instance the shoes on the other foot. She got 4 kids and 4 different baby daddies. I'm not here to talk bad about anybody's personal life or anything like that, but what I'm saying is that what makes you think that now she's going to change and you're not going to be the 5th baby daddy? So what I'm saying is, I don't know where I was going with that, but
No,
I
I
definitely see the control piece in there.
Yeah, I got it. It's the same thing about what I was describing
Mhm.
because you set what you perceive to be attainable goals. That means
Mhm.
you get to control every aspect of it, right? You still get to pursue that attainable goal and live your best life at the same time. But that's not how the system was supposed to be,
Yeah.
and so that by itself causes issues and concerns. So
Mhm.
yeah, I get everything that you're saying. Um,
Some
yeah. Let
people
me
don't believe fat meat greasy. That's what they say.
I have not heard that one in a long time. So
You said
when
something the other day on the show the other day too. That was something funny. I can't think of what it is, man.
did I?
It was something
Yeah,
new a couple Fridays ago.
there's no telling what I'll say sometime.
Yeah.
When success is just you talking about choking a tree. That you talking about.
Yeah, yeah. The plant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
choking the
yeah.
plant. Right. Next is when success is just conformity. And here this brings into the notion of the mimetic desire. And the mimetic desire is a psychological and sociological theory developed by French thinker Rene Girard, which posits that human desire is not inherent or self generated, but rather imitative. We desire things because others desire them. This creates a triangular dynamic between the subject, the person desiring the model, the person or entity being imitated, and the object, the thing desired. And the insight here is 92% of successful entrepreneurs diverged from industry norms. So, that said, how might a 30-day mimetic fast, avoiding others' success story, rewire their definition of purpose? Or I just say success. Maybe purpose was the wrong word. Success.
Either one, purpose or success. 'Cause I think either one could fit. Um, how might a 30-day mimetic fast rewire their definition of purpose? I think if you brush your teeth every single day and then you don't brush your teeth for 30 days, it's gonna be some stuff going on there. Your whole mouth bacteria is going to be rewired in a negative way. Now, if you do this fast, I think the same thing happens, but in a positive way. I think what you see is you're seeing Coach's story and Roland's story and Gaddy's story and Shell's story, and all of these people who have made it and they're successful and they're talking about all these different things. And I'm over here like, with Coach got it going on and Roland got it going. Everybody got things going on. So I'm just like, well, I need to be doing what Coach doing. I need to start a podcast. You know what? Shell got going on. I need to start me a TikTok and I need to be talking about what I do in my daily life, you know. And I think when you got all of those things coming at you and you haven't figured out your purpose yet, or then I think what happens is you get an opportunity to not see what everybody else is doing and you get to look at yourself. You get to stop looking out of the window and you get the opportunity to look in the mirror and see what's in front of you, because now you don't have the distractions or the information about what everybody else is doing. You get to make your own definition of purpose or success based off of your own thoughts and ideas and information, not what you're seeing from someone else.
Yeah, I like that. You spot on. And I remember you doing a fast here not too long ago. You're absolutely right. When you do a fast, things change. Something happens. Your focus changes. You get the focus on something else, whatever that looks like, right? Um, and I think when I fast from trying to live vicariously through somebody else's success story. And then, looking at what they did and what they've accomplished or what they're trying to accomplish or what they want to achieve, then I don't feel so drawn to that. It makes me now get to the point of trying to figure that out for myself, what does success look like for me? And so I love the fact that you actually said that, because at the end of the day, um, it's good. It's good to be able to withdraw from things of that nature, because it helps you search within yourself to find the answer. And I think the answer that everybody is looking for lies within them. So I love the fact that you said that.
But I also think that you need to do something. If someone was to do that, I think you need to do something else. I sometimes abstaining from things is good, but what are you going to do with that extra time that could benefit you to get closer towards your goal or whatever it is that you got going on? Because like I talked about before, is you know, not too long ago on the show, is not just not talking but focusing on paying attention and actively listening to the person, not just the avoidance of doing something, but actually being active or in the process of trying to be better at not cutting people off, not just not talking, but actively listening. Because I'm actively listening, then I'm automatically going to not cut somebody off.
Sure. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I said they can search within themselves. So they're
Yep.
actively searching for the answer when it comes down to defining their success. And so, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Man, time is not playing. So this is actually our last point, though. Why success isn't a destination. And this to me is my favorite one. Um, so neuroplasticity growth loop refers to the virtuous cycle where intentional learning, practice, and resilience physically wire the brain, thereby enhancing adaptability, skill mastery, and fulfillment. It bridges neuroscience and personal development by turning effort into structural brain changes that reinforce continued growth. In industries disrupted by startups like AI, green energy, were led by founders prioritizing iterative reinvention over fixed goals. So, how does education's obsession with milestones, grades, and degrees stunt innovation by conditioning minds to fear iterative retention? Reinvent. Man, I can't even talk. Let me read the question again. How does education's obsession with milestones, grades, and degrees stunt innovation by conditioning minds to fear iterative reinvention?
Mm. As an educator, um, resume, 7 years as a school counselor and 1 year as a high school counselor. I have seen the fear on kids' faces in third grade because they have to take an end of grade test. They are worried, they are scared because the system is obsessed with milestones and data and information. Next week, in 2 weeks, well, on whatever day it is, August the 25th, our school, we go back to school. The kids go back to school. And some kids want to be there and some don't. But for a lot of students, that first week back, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to sit down and they're going to take a test that's between an hour and a half to 4 hours long. And because they're obsessed with milestones, we want to see where coach was at the end of his fifth grade year and how he is with that same information when he comes back to school 2.5 months later. Did he fall off? How much information did he retain? And now we have a starting point for fifth grade year, and we're going to test them again mid year, and then we're going to test them again at the end of the year, right? So that's just one test, and then there's other tests and there's surveys and all of these different things because everybody is constantly trying to pull data. We got this way because of a whole bunch of things. One, some teachers was doing what they were supposed to do, some wasn't. Well, if we want to make sure that everybody was doing what they're supposed to do, then we got to implement these tests and these surveys to track to make sure that teachers. Well, What if some teachers are teaching this and some teachers are teaching this? Well, now we have to come up with a curriculum. Everybody has to teach the same thing. Everybody has to be on the same pace. So their system is so embedded with data, statistics, and different things like this because everybody's trying to progress. You know what I'm saying? Because parents want to see that their students are doing well in school because students, parents know that at some point, little Johnny may want to go to Duke or University of North Carolina or go University of Georgia, go Dogs, you know? So they know that they have to start that process early. So they need their students, and where I'm at now in high school, to get 4.5 because a 3.9 ain't going to get you into Duke. You
Mm.
know, what you mean a 4.0 ain't going to get you into Duke? What you mean you got an A average? No, brother, you're on a wait list. You know, so I don't know, man. I don't know, but um let me get back to it. How does education obsession with milestones stunt innovation by conditioning minds to fear? Because they're on a it stunts innovation because they already have a plan to get to UNC, to Duke, to University of Georgia. The plan says I need to be an athlete sometimes. I need to be a leader of something. I need to have volunteer hours. I need to have AB class in this. I need to have this many classes. I need to have these honors classes. It says I need to have all of these milestones in order to get into Duke, to UNC, to NC State, to University of Virginia, to Georgia Bulldogs. So because the path is already written for them, there is no need for me to think about and create my own innovative way to get to the goal. That's
Yeah.
my thought.
No, I like that. And believe it or not, all that made sense. Especially to me, right? I would say it a different way. It's probably the same thing though. School creates linear thinkers.
Mm,
I have to do this to get to here, to get to here, to get to here. And in my mind, there's only one way of doing it because that's the only way that was prescribed for me to do it. Therefore, once I leave the education system and go into the world, that's the mental model that I actually have. But when you're doing a thing iteratively, it's like you go from here to here and you reassess. And then you're going from here to maybe over here, and then you reassess. And then from here to maybe over here to reassess. So every stopping point you're assessing and then re-engaging and making sure that you're still going the right path. School does not condition you to do that. Like
nope.
I told the story before. I went to eat lunch with a friend of mine and we went to Subway. And, I ordered a salad, a Subway salad. And she asked me, would you like some chips and a drink to go along with it? I said, no, I got some water. Let me just get the salad. And she just stood there. She froze. And I was like, ma'am, are you okay? She said, yes. Would you like a drink and some chips? I said, no, I just want the salad. And she stood there again. And my coworker, Doug, he hit me. He said, is she okay? I said, man, I said, It's fine. And I told her, I said, ma'am, are you okay? And she said, yes. Would you like a chips and a drink? I said, listen, I don't want the chips. I don't want the drink. All I want is the salad. And then she said, okay. And then she turned around and grabbed the manager. And I think I share that story only as an example because a lot of times that's what happens to us. And what we don't realize is that that is a result of when 1 plus 1 only equals 2, right?
Mm,
We look through it as as a model of thinking. I have to have one and I have to have another one to come up with a sum or an answer. So if I don't have those things in place, then I freeze and I get to the point of being paralyzed because I don't know which way to go next. And so when you look at, and I bring this back up, when you look at these startups that looked at doing things differently outside of the normal thinking model, well, then you realize that when they prioritize iterative reinvention, right, which simply means that every step they're assessing themselves and see what they need to do better and how they can reinvent themselves on the fly. So it's almost like building this airplane while in flight, kind of like mindset. When you look at that, then that is a totally different way of thinking than what the school system traditionally teaches. Now, I do believe that I do believe that some education programs are trying to become more flexible. They're trying to do more, they say critical thinking, but it's not
Mhm.
critical, it's creative, right? Critical is identifying and unpacking the problem. Creative is coming up with solutions to the problem. And so teaching critical thinking skills, being able to identify the problem is fine. But if I don't teach you how to creatively think to solve the problem, you're going to use the same problem solving metrics that you've always used to try to solve this problem. Well, what if this problem set is a more complex problem than what you're accustomed to? And that old normal way of solving problems does not necessarily fit. Do you have the ability to come up with solutions to solve the problem that you unpacked it very well because we taught you how to critically think. But what about creative thinking? What about asking you how many different ways can you do this? Like, sure, the instructions say this, but what if I never gave you instructions to say put this together? Now you can't follow step one, step two, step three, step four. You got to figure the steps out. And that's what we mean when we say, getting to the point of iterative reinvention. Because a lot of times, what most people don't realize is that that's what they have to do with their life. But you don't learn how to do that until you get of a substantial age, and then you're like, oh well, I'm old now and I'm fixed. I'm set in my ways, and that's the wrong. You're never too old, right? And I say it that way, and I say that as a 51-year-old man. You're never too old to reinvent yourself. You're never too old to look at what you're doing. Not saying that what you're doing is wrong, but look at what you're doing and say, hey, how can I do that better? Because maybe the way that you were doing it, maybe the way that you were doing it is not necessarily ideal. It worked for, you know, a version of success. But what do you do? How do you get from here to here when it comes down to success? So that's kind of like my response to that.
Yeah. I like that you separated and gave the difference between critical and creative thinking. I look at even going into college, there is some creative and critical thinking, but that's a lot of linear stuff as well. You have to go and do this and this and this. So I know the struggle for at least some parents is, you know, I gotta kind of prepare the child for college just in case that they want to go there, you know. But if they want to be an entrepreneur, or they want to take over the family business, then there's a different path. And I think that's where the struggle comes in with parents that know. And once you get the information, it's like, well, how do we prepare our child? Because I want them to be able to use critical thinking and creative thinking, but everything is kind of designed to kind of follow the path and to have that linear thinking that you were talking about. And it's just kind of something I just, was just thinking about as you were talking. And, it's can definitely be a challenge. And I don't know how we got here. I know there's a lot of different things in the education system,
Mhm.
a lot of layers, a lot of different things, but there's so much information and time and resources being put into data and data collection, because just at my school, there's 1,500 students, so now you add in a whole district and you looking at everybody's data and information, and someone has to read that data.
True.
Someone have to decipher the data. Someone have to push out the data. Someone have to push that data out to everybody else. So you look at all of these different steps that just comes to, one survey that might be done. So the it's a long path, it's a long hole, it's been digging for a long time, and
Well,
I don't know what the solution is,
well,
man.
you got to look at the reason why it was created.
Mhm.
Originally, school,
Yeah,
uh,
originally.
originally the education system was created to create workers, right? College was created for those to manage those workers.
Mhm.
Sure, it has evolved a bit since then, but ideally, regardless of what industry we're talking about, what era of time we're looking at, it's somewhat still the same.
Mhm.
Now you add in credentialing to go along with it, which means that they're just specialists. Like you specialize in a particular thing because I have the credentials to say I specialize in it, but still, yet somebody got to manage those people. So that's the people who go to college. But still, yet, like you said, there is some critical thinking being taught, and there is some critical
There's
thinking
some.
being taught in, I'll call it grade school, 1 through 12, right? There's some critical thinking being identified, being taught. But again, being able to identify the problem and dissect the problem is one thing. Solving the problem is something different. And what if the same mind that has the understanding of solving problems is the mind that created the problem to be solved? And at the end of the day, they can't use the same metric to solve the problem that they created. And
Mhm.
so now that means you got to go outside of what you normally do. And that's kind of like why you get into the space of, you get these certain people who think, as we say, think outside the box. They do things differently. That's all they're saying. They do things differently than what the normal beaten path is. And then we look at these people like, oh, this person is smart. This person is a genius, blah, 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 blah. No, they're just not conditioned. That's really what it is. They're not conditioned to think like you. Like they actually ask questions and they ask, why do we do it this way and why do we do it that way? Well, if you're in a space to where people are afraid to be asked why are we doing it this way and why are we doing it that way, can we do it this way? What's stopping us from trying this? And you want to stick continuing down the beaten path because it worked. Well, you're not looking at getting better. They're like
Mhm.
they're part of the problem. So instead of and we tend to use the word inflation as it pertains to finances, but yet inflation also implies the processes as well. So it's only going to be a certain amount of time before your old processes become antiquated and then somebody else creates a new process that puts you out of business.
Yep. It's like Blockbuster and
There you go.
Redbox. I mean, bro, they both had it.
That's it.
They had all the movies.
That it did. All right. As always, great conversation. And based upon the time, we're just going to kind of dive into our actionable thoughts. And then we're going to call it a night. So that being said, make way for our actionable thoughts.
Blow me up.
All right.
Good. Actionable advice for this evening. So today we've been talking about the biggest lies we tell ourselves about success. One, go back and look at this video and see what nuggets got pulled out, first of all. And then, second of all, write those things down and see if you have any of those lies. Kind of go back to that first question of the night about, the metrics. Like, what if the metric society uses, um, what if the metric society, let me put it up here. What if the metric society uses to define success are sabotaging your ability to feel fulfilled? So I think this is a really good question that everybody should go back and just think about and ponder on, because I think that sometimes what happens is as we go through life, we are constantly being bombarded by information. We're reading things, we're consuming content, we're picking up things with our eyes and our other senses and stuff like this. And um, sometimes a lot of these things, if we go back and look at sometimes how we're thinking, they're the way other people think about things and not necessarily our own thoughts. So I would just challenge anybody out there, when it comes to success, go out there and look and see and come up with your own definition of what success is. Coach and I can't come up here on Tuesdays and Friday nights and say, hey, this is what success is. We can tell you from our perspective what we think success is in our lives. And that may be the same or it may be different than um what your definition of what success is. But I would just say to go out there and really think about success. I would just say something for me, success ain't it ain't the end of the road. It is getting to a place in my life where I can wake up in the morning and piddle around the yard. So that's my actual advice for the day. Yeah, that's it.
All right, very good. I greatly appreciate that. Again, if you miss the five lies, you got to pay attention, right? The five lies is, in essence, achievement addiction, which is number one. Hustle culture, number two. Um, it's next is busyness, number three, and success. Using the term success by itself, or just chasing success, which is number four, and number five is that success is a destination. I think when we really start looking into that, it really makes a lot of sense, and that's one of the reasons why we spent time talking about creative thinking versus critical thinking, because, like I said, critical thinking is all about uncovering and unpacking the problem. Well, one of the things that we don't do when it comes down to critical thinking is unpack the problem of the information that we've obtained that literally became the foundation of our belief system. Have we asked ourselves enough questions about the things that we really and truly do believe that drives the outcomes that I'm getting in my life? If I have not unpacked those things by asking some very serious questions or allowing people around me to question those things, then my question is, then when do we get to the point to where we expect those outcomes to change if we never get to the point of challenging those belief systems that we have? And that's what this whole conversation is all about. The whole notion of success a lot of times is rooted in something that is an untruth. So it requires us to go back and find the information gaps and find out where they're wrong, and then go back and change them and make them better so that we can become better for the future. And that is my actionable advice. As always, greatly appreciate these conversations. As always, greatly appreciate sharing in conversation with you. Any final words you got for the people, man?
Man, that actual advice was spot on. Yours was. I was intently listening. It was a really good one, man. No, man. Other than that, man, I don't have anything else. I thought it was a really good show. I enjoyed it. Um, my biggest takeaway, if I may add, is you know the difference between the two C's:
Critical and creative.
critical and creative thinking. The critical and creative thinking. I don't know why I just drew a blank. Yeah,
That's
the
all right.
critical creative thinking. I hear a lot about critical thinking in certain spaces. The only time we really hear about creative thinking, I really hear about it, is when we're talking about people who kind of sort of like artsy in the arts, and so we talk about that. But I think that's something that we probably all need to get a healthy spoonful of. I know
Yeah.
I could use some.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Everybody's creative. And
Everybody is.
unfortunately, a lot of us walk around thinking that we're not. So that being said, greatly appreciate that. Greatly appreciate you. Greatly appreciate you guys in the chat. Again, if you have not liked it, go ahead and like it. If you haven't shared it, make sure that you share it so people can watch the replay. That being said, you guys have a great rest of your evening. We will see you guys next week, same time, same place. And as always, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we will see you next week.